person, and I'm an art historian.
I'm Giorgio Locatelli, and I'm a chef. We are both passionate about my homeland, Italy. The smell, the color, it's what food is all about for me. The rich flavors and classic dishes of this land are in my culinary DNA.
And this country's rich layers of art and history have captivated me since childhood. It's meant to make you feel as if you are being whirled up to heaven. We're stepping off the tourist track and exploring Italy's northern regions of Emilia-Romagna, Lombardy and Piedmont.
It's part of Italy that's often overlooked, but it drives the whole country. And I want to show off its classic dishes.
Not to mention its hidden legacy of artists, designers, intellectuals.
Wow! This is incredible! This week we are in Lombardy, where I grew up. And I can't wait to introduce Henry to the earthy Lombard food of my youth.
We'll also enjoy the ingenious art and thrilling design that reveal how this region really is the motor of Italy.
Lombardy may not be the most exotic region in Italy, but for me it's special. Bordering Switzerland, we are closer here to Zurich than Rome. There is only one place to start our journey, my hometown of Corgena, by Lake Maggiore. I cooked for Andrew many times in my restaurant, but I'm taking him to where it all started, Casa Locatelli. Mamma! Papà!
Ehi, come va?
Benissimo!
Finalmente sei arrivato!
Ho portato anche Andrew, eh?
Bravo, così almeno lo conosciamo!
Oh, ciao! Allora.
Piacere!
Oh, small daddy. This is small daddy. He used to be bigger than me, but now he's
Piacere!
bigger than you.
Lei Stinuccia?
Io Pinuccia e lui Ferruccio.
Ferruccio.
Ok.
Adesso facciamo il biglietto!
Oh no, I'll remember. I'm hungry.
We're here for lunch, and polenta is on the menu. Benvenuto.
Benvenuto in casa Locatelli.
Grazie.
See, what's happening here is this. My mom runs the kitchen, and even when I come home, I'm not allowed to cook. So she cooks all the time.
Cosa ha detto?
Sì. Lei è il capo della cucina.
Certo.
Però an exception is made for polenta. Polenta is a man thing. So my dad, as you can see, is ready with his apron. So we're gonna leave my mom here.
Ma non si fa nella cucina?
No. We do it on the fire on the garden. So we're gonna cook the polenta downstairs. But let's go. Andiamo a cucinare la polenta noi? Andiamo.
Dico che la polenta per essere buona deve sapere di fumo.
You have to taste the smoke, otherwise it's not good.
So even though she's the capo of the kitchen, she's still telling you how to do it.
Prepara i funghi.
She's still telling you how to do it.
Yeah. She's got to prepare the mushroom and the thing, and we're going to do the polenta. Polenta, made from ground maize, really is the pasta of the north. In fact, Southerners call us Lombards polentoni, because we eat so much of the stuff. Okay, you see, it's the most simple thing, you know. You just need a fire and a paiolo, which is this like cast iron, and then copper inside. And so, I remember when I was little, I used to see all the shepherds going around with their flocks. And they had a donkey, and on the donkey, they would have, the paiolo on the back.
So they would actually make polenta in the field?
That's right. That's why you make it on the open fire. During the war, that was the only thing that they had, polenta. And when the partisans, which were striving here, it's like
the heroes in the woods.
They were living in the woods. They'll come, and your duty as somebody that was, didn't like the fascists, obviously, at that point, was to give half of your polenta to them.
Beautiful colour. It's like saffron or something.
Yeah. Beautiful yellow. This is Roberto, which is my brother.
This is your brother. You look exactly nothing like him.
No, he's been training how to do polenta for the last 20 years.
Who's the older brother?
Lui.
Allora.
And he's the one who's getting all the training. I'm just being around just doing Michelin star food, something not very important.
But Isabella, I'm hungry. Is this the moment of truth?
This is the most important moment. The main job is done. Now we're gonna go upstairs to see what the girls have managed to
Fantastic.
muscle up.
I like, so
Andiamo?
I like the way it's all swaddled up like a baby.
While we were making the polenta, my mom was busy whipping up a meaty bruschetta and some delicious porcini mushrooms.
Meno male che si mangia! Si mangia!
This is the kind of food that made me fall in love with cooking. Hearty and simple, just the way I like it.
Wow.
Yeah, let's look at the lake and eat the polenta. Now you are full immersion. You smell it, this woody smell. You see how the flavors are so settled and so gentle. Almost like they reflect the personality of the people. Here the people are a bit more mellow. The nature determines what the people eat, but it almost looks like it almost determines as well the character of the people.
Having visited Giorgio's home, it's only reinforced my sense of how strong an influence his earthy Lombard roots have had on him. But there are still sides to this region he doesn't know. Lombardy's a treasure trove of surprising, little-known works of art. And near the town of Bergamo, there's a fascinating masterpiece Giorgio's never seen before. Just a few miles from where you live, there's this chapel attached to a grand house. And inside the chapel is one of the most extraordinary, weird fresco cycles of the whole Renaissance by an artist called Lorenzo Lotto. It's absolutely bizarre. He's like the Renaissance version of Magritte or Salvador Dali.
Okay.
The frescoes he created here in 1524 were commissioned for the private chapel of the Suardi family, one of the oldest and most influential in the region. The chapel isn't usually open to the public, but the family have kindly agreed to let us in. Grazie, è sempre la stessa famiglia qua.
Yes.
Same family at the time, from the time from Lorenzo Lotto, 500 years later, still the same family.
Oh, fantastic.
Originally, the Suardi didn't reserve the chapel for their own exclusive use. Ordinary people who lived locally were encouraged to worship here. The works of art inside plunge you back to 16th century Lombardy, a world in the grip of the Reformation. What do you think of this extraordinary, weird image?
Yeah, this image, isn't it? It's very weird. Surreal, isn't it?
It's absolutely surreal. Christ in need of a manicure. He's got these strange, it reminds me of that German story, Struwwel Peter, the boy who lets his nails grow forever. If you look, you see there's a little clue at the top, actually, what's going on. Lorenzo Lotto is the only painter who took that line from the Bible, Ego sum vitis, vos palmites. I am the vine and you are the branches. They turned it into this extraordinary image.
What are all these images out there?
You've got saints are growing in the whirls and the curls of this vine as it reaches up. But although it's so striking as an image, you mustn't think of it as a single scene, because it's not. It's actually like a comic book. And what it tells is this very bloody story of Santa Barbara. And she is the daughter of Dioscoro, this evil pagan. And he wants to marry her off, but he wants her to be a virgin. So he locks her into this tower as he goes off on his travels. What he doesn't know is that when she's in the tower, Christ visits her, gives her a vision. She converts to Christianity. There she is, kneeling, praying outside the tower, always accompanied by this lovely little white dog with her.
Oh, the dog is there.
And now this is where the story gets bloody and turns nasty. Dioscoro, her father, has come back. Now he is saying, now is the time for you to get married. And she points up to heaven and says, no, I'm not going to marry any man. I have become a bride of Christ. Now, he has her tortured.
He got her. He's carrying her.
He's got her
hair.
Dragging her by And it gets really nasty. I mean, it's X-rated, isn't it? I mean, he doesn't put his punches. So they apply burning brands to her breasts and her genitals. It's very physical. You know, Lotto's living in this time that's extremely violent.
It really looks terrible, doesn't it?
And throughout this sort of bloody story, sufferings are punctuated by little rays of hope. So now an angel comes down from heaven and gives her a white cloak to put around her body, and as soon as she puts the cloak around her body, her whole body's healed, and then her little dog is accompanying her all the way. The thing about this fresco cycle is the date. 1524. This is a time of huge crisis in Wittenberg in the north, just over those mountains that he's painted. Luther is saying, we must split the church, we must protest against Rome. And this fresco is the Swardi family's way of saying to everybody who lived around here, don't buy into the idea that this church is going to be split. Stay true to the old faith.
And also I think just the picture as this kind of normal people, so the people kind of sympathize with that, or see themselves part of this thing.
Absolutely, it's saying to the people, this could happen in your world. Lotto himself is actually represented in that fresco.
Oh, okay.
I think that's almost like his signature, and he's looking at us. And he's got this haunted expression.
He's almost say like, got the message? Sort of thing.
I think
this is such a small chapel with such a big message.
I think that's what he's saying. Have you got the message? He's an Italian artist with an Italian message. But Lotto's style owes a lot to the art of Northern Europe. I love it.
Andrew's right. Lombardy often has more in common with Northern Europe than Mediterranean South. Progressive, pragmatic. Unlike the laid-back Southerners, the Lombards like to get things moving. You don't have to look far, for example, from every era. My favorite is on the River Adda, one of the greatest arteries of Lombardy. It may not be a fresco, but I'm pretty sure Andrew will appreciate it. Andrew, this is it. This is the bridge. This is it. We're here. Look at the drop. It's unbelievable. Try to turn right here. Here you got a lot of industry and exchange. So this bridge was very, very important for the communication. It is amazing. Built in 1889, the San Michele Bridge was much admired across Europe for its elegant design and cutting-edge technology. It's simple, beautiful, and most importantly, functional. It is enormous, isn't it? It looks so tiny from the top. No, it's just so big.
What I like is when you see it in the river, it's like an eye staring into the 20th century.
And this is what Lombardy is all about, looking towards the future. They built this thing in 2 years.
2 years?
In 2 years they built this thing. Their feet were definitely in Europe. These guys were there with everybody else, with the Industrial Revolution and building and going for woods.
They're kind of the dreamers, but they're also engineers.
Bellissimo.
But I think we've had enough wandering around. It's time to go to the beating heart, the capital of this region, Milan. Even the road that takes you there, the A8, expresses Lombardy's forward-looking spirit. They say it's the first motorway in the history of roads.
That's right. Not the German, not the English, but the Italians built the first.
North Italians.
This was the first road straight in a very Roman way and went through all these big fat towns and took you to Milan.
This road is also very important at a symbolic level for what northern Italy wanted to represent in the early 20th century, because throughout the 18th and 19th century, Italy was a byword for a country living in the past, going really nowhere. And then suddenly this road said, no, we're going somewhere, and where are we going? We're going to the future.
Rome may be the capital, but Milan is the real power behind Italy. Over 2,000 years old, it occupied a key position along the ancient trade route between Rome and Northern Europe. Dynamic and industrious, it remains the most important commercial center in the country.
For me, there's only one place to start our exploration of the city, the grand Gothic cathedral. Dominating the old city centre, it's the heart and soul of Milan. All roads seem to start and end here. Construction started in 1386, and it's one of the earliest examples of the great Milanese gift for design and engineering. Do you know, Giorgio, I think that's the first time I have ever seen the front of Milan Cathedral without huge amounts of scaffolding on it.
First time I've seen so white.
Yeah.
Even in the picture of the panettone, the one you buy at Christmas, there's a picture of it and it's much grayer than that.
It's wonderful, this cathedral, Phil. Ruskin loved it, and he talked about its frost crystalline beauty. He thought it was almost like a snowflake that has come down to earth. It's got that sort of structure of a snowflake. It's beautiful.
It's impressive, isn't it?
Should we go inside?
It's kind of look.
Built over 6 centuries, the cathedral is one of the largest in all of Europe. It's dedicated to the Madonna and is still one of the great pilgrimage sites in all of Italy. I've visited many times and always find something new to marvel at. This time we're going to explore a very different part of the building.
I love this, what a treat!
We're on our way to the roof of the Duomo, the most ingenious part of its design.
Oh, yeah, beautiful flat. Can we arrive?
We've arranged to meet one of the engineers currently restoring the roof.
Buongiorno, signor Merlin.
Buongiorno, ben arrivato.
Che piacere essere qui. Questo è Andrew, che è il mio amico.
Grazie.
Prego.
Faccio strada.
Grazie.
Benigno Molin works for the Veneranda Fabbrica del Duomo, the 600-year-old workshop that built the cathedral and is still dedicated to its restoration.
Siamo nella parte di cantiere.
Sempre lavoro.
Non so dove.
Oh, i pezzi, guarda.
Queste sono le parti nuove, rifatte.
Ah, queste sono le parti rifatte. These are pieces that they're remade. È marmo questo.
Questo è marmo di Candoglia perché noi siamo l'unico monumento al mondo che possiede la cava.
Okay, so they own the quarry where you actually get this stone from.
It is a historic quarry.
It's an historic.
It's the same.
It's the same quarry.
Stone from in the first place.
It was modelled on the Gothic cathedrals of Northern Europe, but the Lombard builders couldn't resist adding a few innovations of their own, and the construction of its roof was completely revolutionary.
Nelle cattedrali nordiche generalmente la copertura è molto verticale, mentre qua è portata quasi in piano. Il tetto è fatto da 2 serie di volte. Queste volte riducono la spinta laterale, tanto che i nostri archi rampanti sono stati realizzati più per motivi estetici che per motivi strutturali.
Talking to Signore Molin made us want to see more of the Duomo's crowning glory. I love how what might have been a purely functional feature has been made a thing of beauty. It's as if there's a whole other cathedral here up in the clouds, and it's open to the public too. It's a phenomenon, this building. It's the only great Gothic cathedral that seems almost designed for you to be able to enjoy and take pleasure in the structure of its making. Down here, you see, you've got this sort of series of walkways, pathways. It was always made to be walked on, enjoyed.
Right.
So all the different levels, you can see the structure, And as a result of that, they've exercised their ingenuity, whereas in other Gothic cathedrals, the spires and the minarets just rise up to the sky pointing to God. Here they've become plinths for outdoor sculptures. You could say this is the first outdoor sculpture park.
You know what it reminds me? It reminds me of this, when you wet the sand and you make these things and they just sort of like grow underneath your hands. It has the same kind of fragility to that.
That's what's so beautiful about the Gothic, I think. This cathedral is actually the engine room of what's made Milan a great temple of modern technology and design, because in the Gothic period, the mathematicians, the engineers, the architects, the designers, they were brought into being by the needs of this cathedral.
Solving problems.
So it's kind of a machine that's constantly attracting to Milan technological innovators. Back in the day, every great intellectual who came to Milan seems to have been involved with the cathedral. And in the Duomo's archives, there's evidence of one particular genius and his small contribution.
Signor Roberto, buongiorno. Siamo venuti a vedere il registro contabile.
Sì, bene, allora lo faccio vedere. Questo è un registro contabile della veneranda fabbrica. Questo libro parte dal 1480 e in avanti e raggruppa dei pagamenti a persone che hanno lavorato per la fabbrica del Duomo. Tra questi pagamenti,
for everybody who collaborate to build the Duomo.
A lot of people seem to have collaborated.
Tra queste annotazioni contabili che sono contenute in questo volume c'è questa che è particolarmente interessante e come potete vedere Leonardo Florentinus sottoscritto qui.
Scusi Roberto, you've picked this one out for us and it's actually evidence that Leonardo Florentinus, Leonardo from Florence,
sì,
i.e. Leonardo da Vinci,
certo,
had actually done some work for the cathedral. How wonderful!
Nell'agosto del 1487 lui ha avuto l'incarico di fare un modello per quanto riguarda il Tiburio, ovviamente.
It's like the cupola.
Il saldo del suo lavoro gli viene dato l'11 gennaio del 1488, in totale il modello ligneo gli è stato pagato 56 lire.
What a wonderful little detail, because that's far less than he would be paid for the major commissions. And yes, a wooden model for a cupola is a very complicated thing to make, so that suggests to me that he really wanted to work on the cathedral. He wanted to leave a mark.
He understood there was something then.
Well, of course, he didn't in the end design the cupola. The model never got used.
No.
It's been lost. Ma grazie Roberto.
What a wonderful piacere.
Piacere.
Arrivederci.
It's very revealing that Leonardo sold himself to the court of Milan as an engineer rather than an artist. He worked for the great Duke Ludovico Sforza for nearly 20 years, designing bridges, boats, weapons of war. Design and engineering were the priorities in Milan. So what its success is built on.
That philosophy had a radical impact on the shape of the city. Just a short walk from the Duomo, you can visit one of the most outstanding examples of technical imagination. La Scala is amongst the most prestigious opera houses in the world, and we've been allowed to take a look inside.
I've never been here before.
This! Look at this!
I think it's the world's first horseshoe-shaped theatre.
That's right, and it's all designed with sound of that mind, so it's incredible. You see the shape of each of the things is made as well in order not to destroy the echo. So
Boxes.
Yeah, the boxes.
I'd love to come on.
You sing it, can you sing?
No, I can't.
It is absolutely outstanding to be here. But we didn't just come here to admire the theater. I'm taking Andrew to Il Marchesino, a restaurant in the same building. It's owned by the most celebrated Italian chef in the world, Gualtiero Marchesi. With 3 Michelin stars, he globalized Italian food and made it a success that it is today. Gualtiero is waiting for us. So, coming. It's like a theatre club. That's what it is. We are in the theatre restaurant. Gualtiero, buongiorno. Rivederti. Questo è il mio amico Andrew. Piacere. Sono Andrea. E volevo proprio che vi incontravate, perché lui è un critico d'arte, tu sei un cuoco più ispirato dall'arte che io conosco. Gualtiero made this dish in one of his creations, and to me it's the dish that really represents Milan more than anything else that I ever seen before.
E come si chiama? What's the
Solo
dish?
Milano, just Milano?
Milano.
Italia.
All Italy, ok. Che piatto è? Vuole sapere che piatto è?
Riso, oro e zafferano. E un risotto alla milanese.
Gold.
Yeah, with
Saffron and saffron.
Siamo ricchi.
We're rich in Milano.
What master is to really concentrate on the flavor. And very unique and clear flavor. So even if there is a lot of creation in what he does, it is always a great respect for the flavors.
So what is the essential flavor issues of
the saffron?
The saffron.
Definitely, yeah.
E questa è una variazione, una cosa completamente differente.
È differente perché io parto con un procedimento alla rovescia. Faccio
He's turning the procedure upside down.
Okay.
tutti i risotti,
All the risotto.
sempre molto formaggio, parmigiano, reggiano,
Put a lot of cheese
per dare acidità.
to give that acidity.
Però tutti i risotti sanno di formaggio.
And then you taste only the cheese.
Allora, per eliminare il formaggio, faccio il burro acido con il quale manteco il risotto alla vita. Questo è il burro acido.
Tasty.
Con le mani.
Wow,
Acidity.
that's like a
Very high
beautiful reduction of wine.
Wine with onions.
Quanto risotto, poco burro, poco formaggio.
L'equilibrio, sì. Beautiful thing. When he said gold, I thought he meant he was actually going to put some gold leaf in it. But he means
No,
gold as in
there is some
sparkle.
gold coming. No, wait a minute. Lui la ricetta non l'ha mai vista, io non gliel'ho spiegata apposta perché volevo che fosse sorpreso da questa
I was
cosa.
just wondering if it was metaforicamente oro o attualmente oro.
Attualmente ora.
Allora, vediamo.
Non è proprio in mezzo, ma fa niente.
That's amazing.
Okay, we got to taste it.
I have to taste it.
Lo assaggiamo, Gualtiero?
Posso? Prego un po' di...
E devi prendere un po' d'oro,
Oh, what an idea. One sweet, there's a gold.
I vecchi italiani mangiano subito
Solo l'oro,
Vedi?
Buonissimo.
Vero?
Sì, leggero, saporito. Quasi non c'è di formaggio.
The shape of the rice. Can you feel the rice? Yeah, you can get the shape of each of the rice in your mouth, which makes a difference how you flavor it. Innovation doesn't mean that you have to complicate things or layers it so much. And this is a clear example of somebody to express himself without complicating things. So express yourself in simplicity. This is so important.
Io amo troppo la materia per distruggerla.
Grazie.
Alla prossima.
Arrivederci. Grazie.
I golosi.
After sampling Marchesi's gold, what better way than walk off the Regis with a passeggiata through Milan's finest galleria? Sophisticated and opulent, the Galleria Vittorio Emanuele is the oldest shopping mall in Italy. Strolling through this luxurious arcade, it's obvious why Milan is one of the fashion capitals of the world. Look how elegant they are. Even the traffic warden, look at them. Fantastic.
Those are the cops.
Those are the traffic warden, not the cops.
In Italy.
And in Milan, you know. It's a bit of a temple of capitalism, really, as you can see.
I think it's a cathedral of capitalism. I think what's amazingly daring about it is that the Duomo is literally there.
And the Scala is there.
And the Scala is there. So you've got the Temple of Arts there, the Temple of Religion there, and you've got the Temple of Money here.
Because, this is what
But it is, and it's so grand. 1861, so it's just a few years after the Great Exhibition in London, the building of the Crystal Palace.
It doesn't look like that. It's the same. Victorian sort of building. And it's a great statement from a city to, right in the middle of that, to really show their power and, the commercial. They are commercial animals, those guys.
I think it's the only place where you can really see and feel that sort of huge pride and self-confidence, across Italy in the Industrial Revolution.
Yes.
You only really feel that here.
Yeah. There is one thing that I want to show you. That whenever you come to this place, there is this superstitious thing, and if you see any Milanese walking through, it will come along, and what it will do, it will stand on the balls of the toro. It's called Schishaghi Bal al Toro. And you know all that?
Balls of the bull.
You turn around, and that's it.
Always in Italy, there has to be a superstitious... Okay. Is that because you need balls if you're going to pay the prices for some of these clothes? One of the things I love about the city is how open it is to new ideas and innovations. Although it cherishes its history, Milan isn't stuck in the past. Progressive, forward-thinking, it fostered one of the most revolutionary art movements of the early 20th century, Futurism. It was dreamed up in 1909 by an eccentric poet and orator called Marinetti. Filippo Tommaso Marinetti, in my opinion, wasn't a very nice man. A lot of things wrong with him. He was a fascist, misogynist, he glorified war, but he did have a vision. And I think it's a very interesting character because what he did was he set out to drag Italy into the 20th century, into the modern world. The Futurist Manifesto, it's a guide to enjoying modern life. Everything that an Italian perhaps at the beginning of the 20th century might find disconcerting, the rapid movement of a tram, a crowded street, the sudden sense that everything's moving, it's confusing.
And Andrew, what was amazing is that when you travel the world, when I went to New York and I went to the MoMA, I was so shocked to see that there's a room only of futuristic painting. In Italian museum, very rarely you find a whole room of futuristic. Maybe you find one of these. This kind of, the Italian have kind of a bit refused them.
I think that's part of the later story because futurism turned dark, became associated with fascism. It got a bad name in Italy. But here in Milan, it's the one exception, our home city of futurism, and they did actually create and build, a great collection, which we're going to see. I think we're just about that.
Yeah, we are in Duomo. We have to get out now.
Andiamo. Let's go look at some electric art. We're visiting the Novecento Museum, home to the best collection of futurist art in all Italy. I really like this. It's like a little capsule of futurism, all condensed into just a couple of galleries. Here they begin, they're in Paris, they're in the cafes, they're reading the papers, they're doing what Picasso had done. They're trying to think, what would it be like to be a modern artist? And I think suddenly on this other wall, bang, you've got the answer. They turn, this is not a very well-known futurist, Achille Funi, but he is turning to Milan. He's not in Paris, he's painting Milan, he's painting a man getting off a tram.
Yes, it looks like, for real, look at that. It's like an explosion, isn't it?
I think what he's trying to capture that, when we were on the tram, that sense that the world is not still, that there's the sound, you can almost hear the shriek of the tram. They do take their cue to a certain degree from Paris, because Paris is the great centre of modern art, but they're changing it all the time. Think of someone like Toulouse-Lautrec painting the Can-Can girls. Well, this is an Italian artist, Gino Severini, and this is what he makes of the Can-Can. This is very much an artist who's read Marinetti's Futurist Manifesto, and he's interested in this idea that we are inhabitants of the machine age, and when he looks at the chorus line, it's as if he sees a group of people who've turned themselves into a kind of animated piston engine, their legs kicking.
Yeah, the 12 piston going up.
It's almost like people becoming like the inside of a motor car. They were setting themselves quite a difficult task, which is to capture in a still frame a sense of movement. I mean, this picture, once you read the title, you can see the subject, girl running on a balcony.
It is there, the girls running on the balcony, literally. Like if it was like different frames of a moving image.
Yeah.
Farther you get, the more you can actually see the image moving. It takes really shape. It is brilliant.
One of the things I like about Futurism is that they're trying to break up the language of the past. But the real star of the movement was a man called Umberto Boccioni. Look at this. This is Boccioni's sort of masterpiece in sculpture, and it's called Unique Forms of Continuity in Space. It was based, how appropriate for one of the masterpieces of Milan with its two great football teams, is based on the image of a football player. What do you think of it? Do you like it?
I really, really like it. And, you know, it reminds me more than a footballer. He actually looks like one of those little robot transformer that my children used to have.
Yeah, well, I don't think it's a coincidence, but it's the futurist man striding into what he thought was the future.
The future. The futurists didn't just want to revolutionize art, they wanted to transform how Italians hate as well. Marinetti even wanted pasta banned, and in 1930 he compiled a radical cookbook. I can't resist trying out a couple of recipes on Andrew.
What is that?
Look, here you go, a sandwich, then instead of having the bread on the outside, you have the salami on the outside, and the bread is on the inside. And so you've got anchovies, and you've got green apple. Fantastic, it looks brilliant, doesn't it? So it's really like a very Italian version of what they, what they thought, the food of the future would be.
Did you expect me to like this?
I expect you to taste it, I don't know, I made an effort to make it, so you're going to have to taste it at least.
Okay.
Is it delicious or what?
You try to be polite, would you?
No,
In deference to Filippo Tommaso. But
no, there is some it's a quite interesting taste, isn't it?
it's sort of a little bit disgusting when you bite into it, because it's you're chewing through vast amounts of thick, fatty salami.
Taste the other one. It's the other one.
One.
Dolce forte.
So what? The other one's a strong taste.
And it's got.
Okay.
Should I tell you what's inside?
No, let me guess.
Okay, bye, go.
Sandwich tasting.
This. That is amazing. That's amazing.
I have to say, actually, I like this one.
It's got a banana in it.
I know.
Andrew, what you have to think about this is that, this is 100 years ago. And then we're talking about certain ingredients that were so far ahead. These guys were so far out, like much more than like Aston Blumenthal is with his snail porridge at the moment. Banana, man, they see banana once a year. And he's got anchovies, banana, and another very important thing, mustard, like an English mustard. So they look again to the outside world, they look to the English, they look to another word, a word more industrialized than the one in the hair.
Seriously weird.
Seriously good as well, I think.
It's perfect breakfast sandwich, isn't it?
it'll be really energetic food. It's food on the go, and it's supposed to inspire you and make you feel like you are a modern man. That's what it's all about.
Bizarrely, if you told me what you were going to put in there, I wouldn't have even touched it.
Right.
But it's fantastic. But how many recipes in the Futurist Cookbook did you look at?
I read them all.
And how many did you think were actually could be turned into food you could eat?
Two.
So we're eating the only two recipes you got. And I thought one of them was disgusting anyway. So.
Cheers, man.
I think the only way to toast a banana and anchovy sandwich is with pineapple liqueur champagne cocktail.
What are we doing?
For all their exuberance, Marinetti and many of the futurists were politically misguided. When Mussolini and the fascists came to power in 1922, they embraced his radical policies to modernise Italy. Mussolini would bring Italy to its knees and into the Second World War. And there's one artist, Mario Cironi, who I think captures the darkness of this time better than anyone else. His work in the Novecento is a poignant reminder of how fascism devastated Italy. These are some of Cironi's pictures of the 20s and 30s. And here, Cironi seems, I think, to be painting a kind of dark portrait of Italy as it moves into the fascist years, as it moves towards totalitarianism.
It's very difficult to think that this guy was associated with that movement. I mean, what we see downstairs is this explosion of color and energy and things, and here it's just like monochrome. There is no hope in this picture, isn't it? It's like the guy is almost fading away, isn't it? And the other one is in desperation completely. Like there is no future.
Cironi had it from both angles, because the fascists, who he was supposedly working for, didn't like what he produced for them. And the avant-garde, the rest of Italy as well, didn't like him because he was a fascist. So, and his work became ever increasingly melancholic. If we look at this picture, I mean, if anything, it's even darker than the other one. This melancholy figure, as it were, stranded among the ruins of this new modern Italy by sort of shattered aqueduct, a night sky, it's all darkness, it's all despair. Do you think these pictures do get to the heart of this dark moment in Italian history?
Definitely, both of them. They really are very, very sad picture. You know, because my family been through that. My uncle got shot by the fascists.
He was a partisan.
He was a partisan and got killed. All the family were involved in the resistance. When you hear my father talking about those years, and they just, you know, they was really suffering. There was no food. The Americans were coming and bombing. The Germans were running away. You know, it's just really like a social implosion there was. You know, somewhere along the line he understood that this was what was going to happen.
It's a roller coaster ride, Italian history. Despite the trauma suffered at the hands of the fascists, the country bounced back. After the Second World War, Lombardy rolled its sleeves up and kick-started the economic boom of the 50s and 60s that transformed Italy into a modern country.
Even though they never stand still, the people of Lombardy also never forget their roots. And much of Lombard life is rooted in our food, the kind of staple dishes that I grew up eating. After a busy day, I think it's time for Andrew to experience a local classic. We've been pouncing around a lot.
Pouncing around?
Yeah, we've been in the super shops and things like that. I want to show you the art, really what the people eat.
So you're going to de-poncify us through food.
That's right. So we have to check out one very important thing, because it's very early in the season. See if we got any cabbage. If you got cabbage, I can cook you cazzola. Ne abbiamo di verde? Oh, fantastico. Adesso sono proprio le prime. Ok, allora le prendiamo tutte e tre queste qua. Hearty and earthy. The cazzola is just as representative of Lombardy as Marchesi delicate risotto. With the vegetable chosen, it's time to go to the butcher, the macelleria of Roberto Faramelli. So this is the macelleria I told you. This has been here for 50 years, my people. You know, we're gonna make the sun. The meat is the most important part of the cassola. This is real nose-to-tail eating. And I know Roberto will sort us out with the best cuts.
Allora, inizia 2-2, quello di intero magrissimo, ok? Prego qui sopra, buongiorno.
A noi. Buongiorno Roberto.
Buongiorno, come va?
Benissimo.
Bene, bene.
Questo è il mio amico Andrew.
Ah, salute, Roberto.
E gli ho promesso che oggi gli cucinavo la cassola.
La cassola.
Ok, look at that. How beautiful.
Questo è l'abbondanza e tutti gli ingredienti che servono per fare la cassola come va fatta. Allora, queste sono le puntine di maiale.
This is puntina or spare ribs. Yeah.
Ok, codino. Questo è sexy. sexy Italian, Il grugno, il naso, il grugno,
Sì.
si chiama questo,
Bello.
che è colloso e lega insieme gelatina e tutto insieme.
So you put the pig's nose in to make it gelatinous. That's right.
L'orecchio,
Ears,
più croccante.
nice and croquant.
Croccante, è una carne che anche bollita resta sempre più dura.
How do you say in Italian that's a meal to put hairs on a man's chest? Ha detto il mio amico Andrew che questo qui è un pranzo che ti fa crescere i peli sul petto.
Ok, avete capito tutto?
Perfetto,
Buona cassola,
Grazie. Arrivederci.
Ciao.
Arrivederci, grazie signore. Arrivederci. Now it's time to get to work, and it's quite a lot of work to do. It's ages since I've cooked it. The smell, the color, this is what food is all about for me. This is the smell that I used to smell as I come home from school. As soon as I get to the gate of the house, I knew that my grandmother was cooking this because you could smell it from outside. Red wine. Such a good smell. Nice cooking, so we're going to add the rest of the pig. Do you want me to shave the pig? That's right. Well, I want you to take away the air. Just add that, yes. And in the meantime, while you're doing that, I'm going to add the other pieces. The tail, the snout.
So this feels to me like a recipe that people have been cooking for many centuries.
The idea is that you're using this part because they are the part and they are straight away ready to be used when you kill the pig. The rest of the meat, if it's hanged for a bit, is better. The ham will go and be cured, the back will be eaten in slices.
Oh, because this is the dish for the day of
That's
killing
right.
the pig, right?
That's right.
Ah, it all begins to make sense.
Yeah. Here I got the cabbage.
Cabbage and pigs, classic combination, isn't it?
Absolutely. And now, all we have to do is wait for a couple of hours. Okay. We are happy. Finally it's ready and time for Andrew to taste Lombardy. Andrew, I introduce you to the cassola. Smell that.
Fantastic.
The nose.
Looks lovely.
I'm gonna have the ears.
Is there another
I'll give you half of my ear. Then Andrew, what you do,
You excavate some cabbage. Cabbage is fantastic. It's completely permeated with the meat juices.
it kind of sweet, you know.
Here's a bit of ear. It's like cutting into jelly. Fantastic. Really good.
Completely melt in your mouth, isn't it?
It's fantastic food.
I love food that belongs to somewhere, to a culture. And this is, for me, is Lombardy.
Fantastic. Cheers.
Cheers.
Intellectuality.
That's okay, we've got time. Pace yourself.
And I've got a lot to get through. The cassola was the perfect dish to change gear and lead us out of Milan. We've come to Mantua in the Po Valley, one of Lombardy's great treasures. Tranquil and elegant, it's home to the second great masterpiece I want us to visit. The work of art's to be found inside the Palazzo Te, a hunting lodge built in 1525 for the powerful Duke Federico Gonzaga. I think Giorgio may even like it more than the frescoes we saw at Villa Suardi.
Prego, signore, cavaliere.
Inspired by the grand villas of Rome, the palace was designed by architect and painter Giulio Romano.
So, Giorgio, welcome to the Palazzo Te.
These guys used to live in luxury, remember?
Well, I think of this as the house of fun. The whole place was once full of jokes. This courtyard, originally there was a labyrinth. So even trying to get into this place, you'd get lost. Unless you were with the Duke, who would take you through. So it was just full of little games. Here we are. This palace was not a place for serious thought. It wasn't a place for the administration of his estates. It wasn't a place for business. It was, so to speak, a place for monkey business. And I think the theme of this set of illustrations or decorations is basically sex and drinking.
Inside, Giulio combined his skills to create some truly sense-stunning illusions.
Everything I've shown you so far is a prelude to Giulio Romano's Just the Resistance.
Wow! Oh my God! Come in the middle, come in the middle. So brilliant! Oh! It makes you almost feel sick, doesn't it? It's like he's falling down, the whole thing. Is he not straight or something?
No, it's not straight at all. The room's got no corners, you see.
But that's why he felt like he really fell down, isn't it? Wow.
And originally the floor was undulating, so when you came in, you would almost stumble and feel like you were taking part in the scene, because the subject, in a sense, is the biggest earthquake in mythological history. It's called the Sala dei Giganti.
La Sala dei Giganti.
And the story is that the giants had tried to rebel against Jupiter in heaven. And Jupiter punishes the giants by striking them with thunder and lightning.
God, this is incredible.
Giulio Romano was taught by Raphael, the great master of the High Renaissance, the master of calm, tranquility, order, reason. And this, so to speak, is the first thing that Giulio Romano does after he gets out of school. He's rebelling against his teacher. It's almost as if he's bringing down the great edifice of the High Renaissance. He's bringing it down with his jokes and his games, poking fun at it, making fun of it. This style of art is called maniera, mannerism. It's a reaction against all that purity, all that classicism.
Incredible. What a place, eh?
I'm glad you liked it.
Palazzo Te certainly packs a punch, but it's not just architecture and painting which Lombardy does brilliantly. A short drive away in Cremona is another example of the perfect marriage of tradition and innovation. It's the home of the Stradivari violin. Antonio Stradivari perfected the art of violin making here in the 18th century. The Lombards have always been proud of their excellent craftsmanship, and they're still making instruments to the Stradivari standard today at the International School of Violin Making. Number 5, here we are. Come, Henry. When I was little, I used to go in Varese, and there was a shop of these guys, they made violin. I'm so fascinated about it, how they make it. Signor Daniele, buongiorno. Buongiorno, piacere, io sono Giorgio e questo
Sono Andrea.
Andrea. Look at those tools in the hand to make it. I love the precision. And it takes, quanto tempo ci vuole fare un violino?
Circa 50 giorni.
50 days to make a violin. 50 working days. So it is a work of love.
I noticed that lui carezza il legno.
Lo carezza, sì.
Per sentire,
Che fanno?
per sentire queste curve
To feel the
siano
curve.
uguali, destra poi la sinistra.
One little stroke of that wrong, you can just mess it all up. So to me, this is artisan work taken to a different level. Look at that. It's beautiful. Every luthier goes and chooses his own wood, like an artist would choose his own colors.
Michelangelo going to Carrara to choose his marble.
Or a chef chooses his own ingredients.
Yeah.
You know, the principal ingredient is the wood.
Stradivari violins are the most valuable in the world. In the town museum, there is an unrivaled collection of some of the master original instruments. To preserve their sound, they must be played regularly. I've arranged for us to have a private audience with Maestro Bosco, the person responsible for keeping these precious objects alive.
Allora maestro, qual è il violino che oggi ha bisogno di un po' di allenamento?
È rimasto il violino di Stradivari del 1727.
Come si chiama questo violino?
Vesuvius. Colore rosso vivo della Verona. So we're going to hear a Stradivarius, and it's called Vesuvius. I can't quite believe we're going to have our own private concert played on an original Stradivarius.
Vesuvio.
This is such a treat. I'd never realised that Stradivari was from Lombardy, but it all makes sense. The attention to detail, the beautiful design, the utter fitness for purpose.
There is one last stop for us in Lombardy, a place that for me epitomized the spirit of the region, the Taccani Power Station. Built in 1904, it was one of a series of hydroelectric plants on the River Hata that powered the modern success of Lombardy. My father and his father before him were hydroelectric engineers, so places like these are special to me.
When seeing my father when he was working, I spent a lot of time in places like that. But you know, it is so important because this is the blood of Lombardy. They found themselves with a really enormous light industry that needed energy to propel it forward. And so they didn't have anything to burn. So they harvest the power of the mountain and this water coming down.
I love these old machines. I think they're wonderful.
They are incredible, isn't it? This is like, it's really an expression of what the Lombards are, which is, you know, about movement, energy, going forward, building, you know, just getting things moving all the time.
They're really built them to last, aren't they? I mean, they're made 1904 and they're still powering Lombardy.
And you know, what is really, really nice as well is, you know, a river makes the motion to get the tram in Milan to work. It's lovely to think that that energy then propelled that thing all the way through the futurism to everybody.
I was going to say, without this place, futurism wouldn't have been possible.
Absolutely.
They're celebrating the electrical city. So much noise in here.
Yeah, it is.
It makes me feel like I'm in a cathedral full of machines. Strikes me it's quite a good place to end our journey, given that we've been banging on about how Lombardy is the motor that drives Italy. And here we are at a turbine station that furnishes half of the electricity of the region.
pretty amazing building.
It's like a palace. It's like the Palazzo del Te, except instead of having
Palazzo dell'Elettricità.
I think it really sums up what I've got from this particular journey, which is a really strong sense of the role that this part of Italy has played in the larger Italian story. I think really Lombardy has sort of electrically propelled the rest into the 20th century.
That's the reason I took you here, because I really see the connection between these kind of spaces, this kind of like showpiece like these that are very beautiful to see, but as well they really show the resilience of the Lombard.
That meal that you cooked, what did you call it? The
Cazzola.
Cazzola.
Yeah.
So I felt that, it's a really nice transition. It helped me to understand, as it were, where Lombardy came from, because that, to me, felt like the origins of this place. I was going back to something that people had eaten almost forever, and it wasn't very fancy, it wasn't very posh, it was really rustic. That was food from the fields, and that, to me, almost was a symbol of how far they rose. Through that cathedral, bringing all the intellectuals here, through that culture of design gradually developing into the 19th century. It's an amazing evolution from really quite low origins.
This is also based really on absolutely strong work ethic. Everybody realizes themselves through work. Work is like a religion for them. When they get up in the morning, they see you in the square. They don't say to you, how are you? They say, come va lavorare, which means, how's the work?
How's the work?
How's the work? How are you doing at work?
Do you think maybe I finally understood that's why that you're the way you are?
Why?
Because you're a Lombard. You never stop working.
Friday night on BBC HD usually means a bit of comedy, and that's provided by QI next, with some of the finest bits from the series devoted to the letter H.